right, let's go ahead and get started. All right, welcome everybody. Thanks for coming to this talk. It is being recorded, so it will be made available on the website. We got Andy Smith here, the program coordinator for RRCA. He's going to help with managing people who might be still coming in to get into this, and hopefully help with any questions if I miss people because of my small screen that I'm working with. All right, we've got three people here to talk about their scholarship programs and how they're doing things in their neck of the woods. And let's get them introduced. We've got Andrew Robino from Utica Roadrunners, Sarah Kozol from Florida, Lakeland, Florida, and Shelley Pollock from Texas, Lake Grapevine, Texas. So let's get each one of them to talk about a little bit about what their program is up to. Let's go ahead and Shelley, could you please start?
Oh, okay. So yes, Grapevine, Texas, which is in the Dallas-Fort Worth area, and it is the Lake Grapevine Runner and Walkers Club. And so in our scholarship fund was established in 2015. So it's been around a little bit. The inaugural scholarship funding was created from the donations to the club, also just our general fund. Over the years, we have added we have two races that we sponsor a year, and the proceeds always goes to another nonprofit, but we can always add money or add money to our scholarship fund through those races. That just changes year to year as to how much we put in for the scholarship fund. We also fund it now through a brewery who we have a run there once a week. And so a proceeds from how much is sold that evening for a few hours goes to our scholarship fund. And so that's great. So that's a really good community connection that we have. And so that's how it's funded. Over time, we give away one $2,000 scholarship. It can be more scholarships depending on the year and how much money we have, but that kind of changes year to year. But we always give away one $2,000 scholarship. And it's basically $1,000 per semester for a student. And I guess we do have a criteria. Do you want me to talk about details right now for my criteria, or is that later?
Yeah, let's talk about that shortly. Let's go ahead and get Sarah, go ahead and tell us about your program real quick.
Okay, hi, I'm Sarah from the Lakeland Runners Club. We're in Central Florida. We're about exactly halfway between Tampa and Orlando. We have a community of about 120,000 people. We've had an increase in membership this year, so around 760 members. That includes families and everything, not just the households. So our scholarship fund has been around since 2011. It came out of our summer race series. We hold 7 races each year. And in the summer, we have sorry, this is my 3rd meeting tonight. We have a summer watermelon series, and so it's held June, July, and August. It was held 2 in June. It used to be 4 races, but anyway, it's 3 races. It's $45. It's super cheap, but we pull in about 1,000 people each month for those 3 months, and so that is the primary generator. It's the only generator actually for the scholarship fund. We've given away $107,000, so $107,000 to like 80 some kids so far since 2011. We have given up to 13 scholarships in a year and as low as 1 the first year. So the program has grown. So we talk about, so the funding source is secure because we have a very big race, and we've made that race's mission to provide scholarships for the community. And so if you ask people, what the Runners Club does, like trying to get them to talk about all the great training programs we offer and the things we do for younger kids and the races that we host. What you'll hear is you guys give scholarships to kids, right? So we do think that generally people think of us in a nonprofit way because we give scholarships to kids, not because we're a nonprofit promoting running in the community. So that's kind of the impact there. We have a very defined process. I will say that we are fortunate that Polk County is the largest county in Florida. There's 45 high schools, and the process is open to all 45 high schools. We partner with a education foundation. So the Polk Education Foundation administers all the scholarship programs for all the high schools. So any company, any individual, anybody that wants to give a scholarship to a high school student goes through this foundation, and the students apply once. In February, they have like a 2-week window to write however many essays they need to write. And our criteria is very simple. Write us an essay about how running has impacted you. And we require 3 seasons of either cross country or track. And it's completely blind. You do not know where they went to school, who they are, their coach or anything, to make it be unbiased and fair, because there are no other requirements, just to convince us that you love running.
Great. And Andrew, real quick, tell us about your program.
All right, so I'm in Utica, New York with the Utica Roadrunners. We have a running club that's around 500 members. So each year we give away 4 $500 scholarships to local high school athletes. Funding comes from we have an account that we use, and then we have donations that are made. One of the members, he's an active member, he's in his 90s now. He donates $500 every single year, and he's been doing that for quite some time now. He's got one of the scholarships, actually 2 of the scholarships are named after him. So that comes from the donations and the account that we have.
And what's the geographic area that is able to apply?
So we're in central New York, more specifically Mohawk Valley. And the way that we have done this, at least when I was doing it, and we've been carrying on with it, is we have like a school system. So in our Mohawk Valley area, so we actually just directly email school counselors and say, hey, we got $500 scholarship, and we give it away every single year. We'd love any of your student athletes to submit an application and go through the process. Sometimes we go a little bit further outside of that range. We've actually got someone who submitted this year who was quite a ways away. So I'm not entirely sure how they found out about our scholarship. Maybe they had a member who was out down that way. But yeah, at least an hour or so plus away. So people are hearing about it. We also contact the news. We use our Facebook and media to post about that. We put it out in our newsletters. Every month we do a newsletter, direct mailing with emails to our members. So some years we get better turnouts than others. This year we had about a dozen. During COVID, we only had 5. So just to give, and then some years we have upwards of 2 dozen.
Usually about 50 applicants.
Sarah, you get 50? Wow.
Yeah.
On average. And Shelley, how about you?
Well, we are in a smaller community. We have 2 high schools in our community. And so we do advertise to those 2 high schools. That's mainly who we give it to, but the cross country programs for both of those, like the one always goes to state. It's pretty, they both have very, very good cross country programs. And members, children can apply even if they don't go to those 2 high schools. So that's the one exception, but we do advertise to the to the coaches. We know who they are. There's also there's a list of scholarships through the counseling centers, through the high schools. And so we are on that list of scholarships also for high school. So all of the cross country and track, which are normally kind of the same. If you're on cross country, you are also probably on track. They see those scholarships advertised through their coaches or on that list. One of our criteria for a scholarship applicants is the parents or the family need to be members of RRCA for the past 2 years. So that's how we can bring in some other kids not at the 2 high schools through that option, I guess. But we, again, we are about 385 members for LG RRCA. And so that kind of gives you the size of our club. And again, like, yeah, our numbers of applicants fluctuates every year. And I give away at least one. I know in 2022, we gave away $6,000 of scholarships, and it's up to the scholarship committee to decide what the other amounts are. Like, one is definitely going to be $2,000, but the other winners of the scholarship could have $1,000 or even $500. It does fluctuate every year as to the amounts, number of scholarships given, and the amount.
Great. All right, let's talk about criteria. Everybody wants to know what you're using to make your selections. So let's start with Sarah.
Okay, our criteria is very simple. It's an essay, and the instructions to the student are read. Did you run cross country or track for at least 3 full seasons in high school? Yes or no? If no, you cannot apply. Recipients of this award are selected solely based on this essay. Please clearly articulate how the sport of running has changed, impacted, or influenced your life. Do not include any identifiable information, your name, your school, your coach, etc. And then we take the essays, which actually come in as part of a 600-page document, and have to pull our essay out of the whole mess of scholarship stuff that comes, because we don't look at GPA, scores, financial need. We don't consider gender. None of that is considered. It's just this essay. We compile it into a document to make sure that, and with no identifiable information, and send it to a committee who then ranks the essays, and then we pick the number based on how many we had for that year. So it's we have to turn it around in about 2 weeks after we get them.
Oh, great. That's nice. Andrew, what about your criteria?
So our criteria is a little bit different, and this has also been kind of up for discussion for the past few years. So we're kind of always talking, maybe we should like change some of the criteria, but we do have we have an application. We ask what sports everybody does. What clubs they're involved in, some general questions about like how running has impacted them. We have an essay, we have 2 letters of recommendation. And then we also take into account their transcript as well. And that's done, we decide by a committee. Typically the committee is a group of 4 volunteers. And then we rank everything by points. And then sometimes we find one that's like a really compelling student athlete. Maybe like running has really changed their life in a specific way. But like in a way where it's like their grades weren't really good in the beginning, they were involved in the gangs, or like in that type of neighborhood where they were at more higher risk for not going to college. And then they find somebody like a coach who helps them turn it all around, and you know, they're running for college. So like things like that, maybe they didn't have that's communicated through either their essay or through the letters of recommendation. But usually it's based on a point scale with our general questions. It's on our website too. I'm not going to go through the whole application unless for the interest of time.
All right. Sounds good. And Shelley, what about your groups?
So the eligibility of the scholarship is you need to go to either of the two high schools. You're attending a 2 or a 4-year college. And then your parent guardian needs to be a member of LG-RA for at least 2 years. The scholarship application or the determination is their GPA, their high school athletic performance, their extracurricular activities, and their volunteer hours, 2 letters of recommendation, and then a shorter essay about how running has impacted their life and how your running has prepared you for college. And so that is what the application of that's what the application includes, is those things. And so the scholarship committee is, I think, usually 4 people. And we do have a ranking system for each of those criteria. And we also have, I think all of those are like a 1 through 10 ranking. They're a little, each thing is a little weighted differently, but the scholarship committee is putting 1 through 10 for each of those. And we also have something called like a discretion category where, again, if they have a, compelling story, they got injured and they overcame all obstacles, or, maybe they are state ranked or whatever their story is, and you want to give them a little extra points. I think that's like a 1 through 5 thing. You can do that if you want to. It's kind of how it is difficult when you get in there and you're like, oh, here's somebody who is, state ranked and has done incredible and has a scholarship to college. They're going to run in college, versus those kids who overcame obstacles and, they just have different stories. So that's a way to try to even that out a little bit.
Kristen, real quick, are you there? You
Yes,
had a question in the chat. You want to go ahead and ask it of the group?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, wonderful. Okay, I have a few questions actually. The first question I put on in the chat was for Andrew. What were the changes? It seemed like your group, your scholarship committee, has been talking about making some changes to the application, either the application or the scoring. And which one was it? And what are the changes that you're thinking about making? Like, what are the things that you are concerned about or want to do away with or add?
So some of the things are kind of what Shelley had touched on. If you're doing just like, it depends on who the scholarship committee chairperson is and how they want to run that process. It's the same general process. Like, some scholarship committee leaders have just done it by a straight numbers. If you're doing that, you might not necessarily be looking at the full student, and in terms of like, you get 1 point or 2 points if you have both of the letters of recommendation. So like, in terms of that, it's just kind of like checking off the box. So you're not really like looking at everybody and the full student. So working on more of like some of those just discretionary points kind of gives me an idea about how maybe we can approach doing this a little bit differently in the future. Because you get into it and you're like, oh geez, all these people are really exceptional candidates.
Right.
What makes one stand out over another? So things that we look at are, that comes out usually like in the essay or, the letters of recommendation, in their involvement in volunteering. So in terms of like changing it, I would say like make it so it's a little bit more well-rounded in a way, like, so
Yeah, more representative of people with those special
Right.
stories.
Exactly. Like, for example, we had someone a few years back who was a refugee, and normally, learning a new language, overcoming all of that, and then tapping into running, and then bringing that back into the community just expands the community more and makes everybody, makes it inclusive. So I think our application needs to start to look like that a little bit more. And depending on who's kind of chairing it and what our criteria is, it kind of changes a little bit year to year,
Yeah,
based on the makeup of the committee. But the application and the scoring process, that has not changed in some time.
yeah, okay. And I'm sorry, how many applications do you usually get?
Depending on the year, we've had probably up to 24 at our max. And this year we had about a dozen.
Okay,
So I would say anywhere between, 10 and 18.
what would you say is the reason for the drop off?
COVID,
Oh,
definitely. We, because kids are still talking about how running during COVID, what that was like for them in their essays this year. And I think that was really tough for them and trying to get involved and getting back.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
And then I think just like with everything in running, I don't know how it's like in your communities, but first year back, that was pretty rough, and we're 3 years back now, and we're not necessarily getting all the same numbers that we had in the
Yeah.
past.
Mhm.
We're getting closer to it, so I think that's that's a part of it as well.
I'm sorry, how big is your group? How many people are?
Upwards of 500, I'd say 400 to 500 members.
Okay, okay.
Right now,
And
450, I think.
do you, or any of the people on the panel, have high schoolers in the club? In your
Yes.
clubs? Okay.
Mhm.
About how many would you say?
Oh, if Run Sign Up would split that out, I could tell you, but it doesn't, so.
Yeah.
It's not very many high school students that are actually true members.
Yeah,
Because they, are participating through their high schools, so membership doesn't really offer them any benefits. We give race discounts to kids under 18 as a general rule, so they can't get a second benefit by being a
Right.
member.
Oh.
So, and we're on the west side of the county, so, even though the county that we offer scholarships to has 45 high schools, and that's why, why we don't require volunteerism or membership, is because some of the communities that our county serves are 60 miles away, and there's just no way for them to come and help
Right,
out.
sure.
Mhm.
Yeah,
So
right.
that's one of the reasons that we don't have stricter requirements, because it's just not fair to all the kids.
Okay. And I have one more question and then I'll stop talking and let other people ask questions. Shelley, you said you come from a small community
Smaller.
Um,
I mean,
or smaller. And how many applicants do you have?
we have, it really fluctuates because it's like two teams, and so it can be as little as, 3 to up to 10. And it really does fluctuate every year, and we cannot figure out the rhyme or reason for it. And girls versus the boys, I mean, it really is, we do what we can to spread the word. From what, I mean, I've just been involved the last few years as far as the scholarship committee goes, so I don't know historically, but, for the most part, it's like more boys than girls, which is interesting, but we don't require them to be, running on the college team either. Like, they just need to be involved with running in high school. So
Right.
that's, that's not a requirement or anything. And we do talk to the coaches about, trying to spread the word more, but it really does fluctuate every year. And actually, it's interesting, in 2021, like after COVID, we had a lot of applicants. I think that was like the one activity that people felt safer doing, is running outside. So that was pretty interesting, and I'm sure it's just how your community,
Right.
was.
I think it's interesting that you require the applicants to have parents in the club for at least 2 years.
Yeah,
I wonder if that reduces the amount of applications you get.
maybe. It's interesting. A lot of the applicants say they started running in our races before, like when they were in elementary school.
Yes.
So
Yes.
our community races, draws all different ages, and a lot of them start running because of us. So it's kind of a little bit flipped, maybe, just, and so that's the way it goes. Now, I don't know where that comes from, like how that was put in and like how you had to be a member.
I can guess.
I can,
But
I don't
it's
know.
that you don't join to become a member just so that your child can get a scholarship, that you are truly invested in.
Oh, yeah, but they have to be a member at all. Like, I understand the 2 years, but that they have to be a member at all. I don't know where that comes from. It is something, I don't know. That is in our criteria, but again, that's all, I don't know, we get applicants, and a lot of times their family is definitely involved. I don't know if we get too many people just like, oh yeah, I'm just going to join and then not do anything. Like, people are really involved with our club, and so that is just, and our criteria, I know over the years has changed slightly. It did have to be tweaked because it was versus, are we going to pay attention to financial need versus just really amazing dedicated runner? And we don't really pay attention. It ends up that we don't really pay attention to that. It is just those criteria. So we have had to tweak those criteria a little bit. But it is something that a club just needs to decide, what these requirements are going to be before it starts, to make it a little easier. Because you look at the applicants, you're like, we want to give them all money. So want to give them, all. So it is hard.
All right. Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Yes.
Thank you. Neil, I saw that you had put a question in the chat. Do you want to go ahead and ask it?
Yeah, hi everybody. I'm Neil Coffey with the Syracuse Track Club. I was just curious as to how you make the awards, the payments. Do you write the check out straight to the student, the college, or do you make it out to both?
We put ours out directly to the school, like to their account with the school. So we do have to get information from the winners about their school, so we can touch base with the school and then put the $1,000 or the money in their account, so it can, just go to tuition or however they use that account.
Ours goes, we write a check to the foundation, educational foundation. And so for them to receive that money from the foundation, they have a list of requirements that they have to meet, and they have up to 5 years to get the money from the foundation to apply it towards their education. And in the 13 years we've been doing this, we've had one student not get their scholarship.
Yeah. And now that you bring that up, I'll just add in, and then I'll let other people talk, but ours has to be used that academic year. Like, they've got 1 year to use it. And so that's a different way of doing it. I'm sure that along in the past, something's happened and they've asked maybe to get it the following year, but generally they have to use that money during that next their freshman year of college.
Yes.
And then ours, we just cut a check directly to the student. We have those big checks that we do. They don't get those, but we do just write them a check for $500 directly to them, and then they can use it however they like to do.
Yeah. If I could just follow up on that, Syracuse Track Club, we make the check out to the student athlete, simply because we're concerned about affecting the students' any other financial aid awards. But I'm sure it makes it easier for administration if you're going through a foundation. So it's interesting to hear how everybody's making the payments. So thank you.
Real quick, do you all do presentations, or do you go to the schools and give at their award assemblies that they have?
Sadly, we do not. It's spread out over multiple, it's far away usually, and it's during the weeknight, and we do not make it to those presentations. We have high goals every year, maybe trying to find somebody from the board to step up and go, and it just doesn't happen.
And Shelley?
Ours is decided at the very end of school. And so what we do is invite the winners to, let's say we just did it, and it was actually at our board meeting. And so the board was there, but anybody could come from the club. We do advertise it to the club members. Excuse me. And then the winner comes and the families can come and the coach can come. And we do a presentation to them. We do have one of those big check boards, that we make out, and we take pictures and we do put all those pictures on our social media accounts to advertise that way. But we don't go to the school simply because we're doing this right after school is out. But we always invite the winners to that first board meeting after school is out in June, and then do a big, a nice presentation to them and meet them and their family and their coach, that kind of thing.
And Andrew?
So every Wednesday night after Mother's Day, all the way up until fall, we have Wednesday night training runs that we do. We have a kids run, and then we have 3 different courses that you can run, 3 different lengths. So that's kind of like an established thing. So we kind of have a captive audience. That time where people are kind of like milling around during registration. We have club members and non-club members who are there. So people from the community who just wander on in. And then we do a presentation. So we'll read a little blurb about each of the students, pull like an interesting fact that they got out of the essay or from the application, say where they're going, what they're going to major in. And then we also have our big donor who the scholarship's named after. He's there too. He loves talking with the kids, encouraging them, finding out, what their plans are. So he's there to help make the presentation. We contact the news and the newspapers. So we kind of, for like a 15-minute thing, we make a pretty big deal out of it. And then everybody goes and runs, and that's pretty much it.
Great.
Yeah, we do awards too, like kind of like these little paperweight things along with like the check. So they seem to like the check a little bit more, but we're gonna still do those hard awards as well.
Nice. So here's a question for you all. So how do you feel that this program has an impact on you? What kind of impact do you see it having on your community? I've talked to clubs, and some clubs don't really want to do scholarship programs because you're only giving it to one, you're impacting one student or one person when you give these out. So this question is kind of to the panelists, and then anybody else who wants to answer it, feel free. I'm looking at, how do I talk to those board members who are like, no, we don't want to do scholarship? How do I tell them that this impacts our community, and how does it impact our community, these programs?
I mean, I have a big answer for that, but like I'll give a short answer first and then let everybody speak. All of those individuals who get a scholarship are part of the community that they came from. That's my short answer about that. You want me to expand? I'll let for everybody else talk first, but I'm gonna leave it at that for right now.
Shelley or Sarah?
Yeah, it's just, I don't know, over the years, like it adds up, it's just, of course it impacts those individual kids going to college. It impacts those families, I don't know if it, the whole Grapevine area, doesn't know that, but I mean, the donations that we make to other entities aren't, though they all have to do with running. I mean, that makes an impact, even though it's not right in our community. I mean, I don't know. I guess it just depends. I think it makes a big impact on our cross-country teams at our 2 high schools. And so that's a part of our community. And so we just, I don't know, just make the effort to raise the money for that. But not everything a running club does impact, 100% of your community anyways, but every little thing you do adds up. So you just have to look at it and add it to everything else you're doing. And it's just one little piece of the pie.
Thank you. Sarah?
I think that, like both of you guys mentioned, that, ours started in 2011, so that's 12 years. And news and change is slow, even though things are happening so fast, it's hard to keep up with them. Looking back at the list of kids, I have this hope, just like with our little kids program and our middle school cross-country program, that one day those are the kids that are coming back and leading this organization. And so it's going to take 2 decades to get to that. Looking at one of the success stories that came out of this, one of our scholarship winners from 2018 contacted us this year and asked if we would consider giving him additional scholarship money because he got transferred. I mean, he's going to grad school and he got picked up by Colorado to run for Mark Westmore, which is outstanding. And that's like a very big success story that he left little Central Florida and is going to go run in Colorado. But we haven't seen that turnaround yet. I do think what you guys are saying is absolutely true, that for these 80 kids that we've given scholarships to in the past 13 years, those 80 kids are, still on their way to doing big things. And we don't know yet how much they're going to come back and give to this community, hopefully. But we know that impacted them and their families, and hopefully everyone that attended their graduation or knew that they got that scholarship money all feels more positively about the Lakeland Runners Club, even if they don't participate in our events. And we want running in general to be viewed as a positive sport and a positive influence in the community. And I think that even though we can't measure it in a financial gain each year, the fact that this race series is so successful, and we talk about that you're out there getting sweaty for scholarships. That's our tagline for this race series. It all comes together in some small way for people to know that they can feel, and we do ask them to if they want to make a donation during registration to raise awareness too, even if they don't donate, they're seeing the purpose of this event. It's all gonna eventually, right? We're building that snowball.
Right. And we got Kelly and Kurt wanted to add to this. So Kelly, are you still there?
I am still here.
Kelly.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. So one of the things that I would add is that I feel that our community is behind this, in that a couple of years ago, we added for any of we only do 2 races a year. I'm with Lake Grapevine Runners and Walkers, also, by the way, the same club as Shelley. And so for our 2 races that we put on each year, we added a donate button at the time of registration. So the race might benefit the scholarship fund. It might be benefiting something else, but always, if you make a donation at the time you register for the race, it goes to our scholarship. And we have experienced, in my opinion, fantastic success with that. So maybe one of our races that gets around, 280 people in straight donations, just from people who are registering for the race, we get a couple $100. So those are anywhere from $5 to, on up. So the community sees value in it. And if the community sees value in it, then we're doing something right, is the thing that I wanted to add. And I've actually just found that is like I've actually just been super surprised at how much money that has got, especially if you look at, I think the average donation is about $8 or something. And then it ends up being, $320 at $8 a pop. It pretty much means it averages out where every participant gives something like $2 for one of these races. So the community, that makes me believe the community sees value. That's what I wanted to add. Thank you.
Great. Thank you.
That's a great point, Kelly. I just looked at our data. So we had 1,300 people sign up so far for our summer series, and 154 of them have donated. So a little over 10%. So I think that's good statistics.
Yeah, definitely. Kurt, did you want to say something?
I'm Kirk Milliken, Richmond Roadrunners Club from Richmond, Virginia. And I've been our scholarship chair for the past 7 years, and we've had a scholarship for at least like 15 years. And this specific question, like the idea of contributing money to a scholarship fund to impact a few people has been something that our club has been discussing moving forward. And so this year we are still sticking with our scholarship program, but talking with our club leadership, we might be moving more towards like rather than scholarships for high school seniors, providing scholarships to high school coaches who can use money to impact their whole team that might not have resources for like the right shoes or some of the right equipment. And so that's an idea that we're throwing around, just with the thinking about the amount of money we're putting towards scholarships. Like, can it be used elsewhere to impact more people? So yeah, I definitely appreciate this conversation and everyone's input.
Thank you.
I would like to add on to Kirk's thing there, because we also had that big discussion, Kirk. So if you wouldn't mind sharing how you, or if your board has determined what is a fair process to distribute money to coaches. If we have 45 high schools, then the ones that have the most resources already are going to be the ones that are most likely to have the spare time to ask for money. We have high schools that can't even find a coach. Those would be the ones that we would want to help, but we can give money easily. Finding the people to do the coaching is outside of our abilities right now, because we're also understaffed. So it's like, when we start looking at, we find so many problems that need fixing, that the scholarship program ends up being the easiest to execute.
Sure, yeah. I mean, like a big thing is, I mean, just like being volunteers and finding the time to like do these programs. I definitely agree with you that it's challenging. I mean, to figure out how to spend your volunteer time. And so, I mean, for us, we've kind of bounced around the idea of having like an application that the high school coaches could apply for. And so I think similar to what Andrew said, like for our scholarship program, we send out notifications to all the school counselors and the athletic directors for 55 high schools around the Richmond area. And so like reaching out to those contacts about the availability of something that could be a high school coaching scholarship funds. And I mean, one idea would be like providing gift cards to local running stores. And if that's like meeting the need that these coaches have. So, I mean, if we were to go down a different route to provide funding for high school athletes, we would definitely want to talk to those coaches and see what they need, first of all.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else have any questions? I have lots of questions I can ask, but I'd like to make sure other people that are on this talk are getting their questions answered. So anybody else out there have a
I mean, I could fill some of the air with more about like the community impact until someone raises their hand. I mean, I've ran races with some of the students who are now graduated, and I'm like, oh, hey, I gave you a scholarship a few years back, or didn't you just do that awesome thing? So like bringing them back to the community with some of the races that they have going on. One of the students, she started running with one of our club events at a kids run. And she had a memory that like brought her through all the way through high school, wrote about it in her essay, talked about it. And then I called her out on it when I read her blurb. It was like how empowered she was listening to Katy Perry roar. So like we use that. And then these people, the kids and their parents are also members of the club some of the times, but like then they contribute back to the club in different ways. So I think anything that we're doing to like encourage healthy living and bringing community together, especially in our youth in a positive way like this, is always a good thing. So it might, yeah, you're cutting a check for 4 people or maybe 5 people, but like, you're also talking about the great stuff that they're doing, and you're inspiring other young people to continue on along the way, or other families, other people in the community as well. I mean, we gave a scholarship, his whole track team showed up there and then ran with him later on. So like, I mean, there's just, it's different every single year what the impact is. So you're not really gonna know like if they're one thing, but it's like, it's definitely different every single year, but there is an impact. It does make a difference. It does promote running. It does promote our community in a positive way.
Thank you.
Any
All right, here's
questions?
I got a question. I'll go ahead and see. Homeschoolers. I live in Ithaca, New York. We have a large population of homeschooled children. And currently they're not eligible for our application. And we're like, reality check, because they're club members. We have quite a few families that are homeschoolers that are members in our club. And right now our application says you have to have 2 letters of recommendations, one from your coach and one from your guidance counselor. So what are ways that we can make it more inclusive so that these people who really are local in our community can apply for this money too, to go to college? Anybody out there?
We say just 2 letters of recommendation and we don't specify. Typically it's a coach and typically it's a school counselor. Sometimes it's a teacher. So it could probably be something like someone from the community that they've impacted, that has had an impact on them, that could vouch for them.
Thank you.
I have a question about that, actually. Do you find those letters of recommendation helpful?
Yes, I read one letter of recommendation word for word, and I said to the student, "I'm sorry if I'm embarrassing you, but this is what your blurb is gonna be." And he's like, "All right." So it was just so well written that I did not want to mess with it and leave it as is. And it was inspiring. So yes.
The letters of recommendation from the teacher or the counselor or whomever, is that what you're talking about? That was helpful?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Sometimes you can't really articulate exactly what you want to say, but you've seen someone you've been working with them as a teacher or a coach for years, and you've seen them grow, and they see it. You might not necessarily see that in yourself.
Yeah. Okay.
So I think you take that in account as well. So even though our criteria is, do you have 2 letters of recommendation? I do look at those.
Okay.
Yeah, I think the letters of recommendation help a lot because usually it does come from a coach. So they're writing a lot of recommendations, but it's not just a blanket recommendation. They get very specific on why they recommend that one runner. And they always have good examples of how, the person has changed over time and any obstacle. I mean, it's very specific. And I don't think many at our high school, not many at all, come from the guidance counselors. I mean, they come from the coaches. Maybe they come from a specific teacher who knows how they've changed, over the year. And again, very specific examples. And we even had a few that if they work, even, for the summertime or whatever, from a supervisor or work colleague or something, that those help too. But I think that the letters of recommendations are very helpful.
Great, thank you. Any other questions out there? I know that Freehold Area Running Club out of New Jersey, Isabel Lewis is on their scholarship committee. She couldn't be here tonight. She shared with me her application that they have for their community, and theirs seems to be focused on the club. So being a member of the club, if not the kid per se, as much as the family, or volunteering at races or activities that the club puts on. They've put a lot of weight on that volunteer piece of it, so that though those kids go away and may not come back to the area, their family and their friends are still there, and really being an active part of the running community. How do you all feel about adding that kind of a component to your applications?
Mickey, it's Kelly at K2. Can I jump in?
Yeah, sure, absolutely.
So one, I mean, I would not be in favor of that, in that these kids, what I have found are already just amazing students, athletes. They do volunteer in other areas as well. And me personally, I think that just would be a little too much of a burden. With that said, kind of going back a little bit to what we talked about previously with in our, our scenario with our club having to be a member, we've and the impact it has on, ultimately the impact it has on the community. Our board of directors has at least 2 people that I can think of that either directly or indirectly ended up on our board of directors through our scholarship program. So again, that's another way that we're impacting our club, we're impacting our community, because our board of directors, they're making all sorts of decisions about our social events, who we donate to, how we recruit, all these different things, right? So that's another way that in our club, our scholarship has impacted the community.
Great.
So that's it for me. Thank you.
Thank you. That's awesome.
I think it really depends on what the purpose of, I mean, if you want to limit the number of applications, that's one way to limit it. Like the foundation keeps pushing us to have more criteria, because they're like, it's ridiculous that you're sorting through 50 applications, right? You should really just start with fewer if you would just give us more criteria. But we don't feel like it's fair to have more criteria, because we don't want to weed out someone who's potentially a great candidate on something that's really not related to running at their level. Like they're a teenager, like we need to think about what they have as criteria to give us. And so, yeah.
Great,
But it's
thank
one
you.
way. If you have too many, that would be one way to whittle it down.
Right. Right, definitely. Any other questions out there? Anything else, panelists, that you all want to give to the members of this talk as things, important things to take away about your programs?
We have a policy that has a whole entire process and the tax and the legal implications of it. If somebody wants to have that, you can send it to Andy to tag along with this. And we keep track of everything on our website as well.
Yeah, I sort of related to that. If anybody wants to drop their email in the chat, I can sort of make a list of who is here, and I can send the recording out once it's posted tomorrow, and any other resources. I also know that it seems like this is a group of people that are sort of interested in a very specific topic, and it might be helpful to be able to talk to each other outside of this chat. So if you want to, again, drop email in the chat to sort of be on a larger connection to stay in touch after this ends, go ahead and do that, and I'll take note and send a message out to everybody at the conclusion here.
Great, thank you. Ray, you have a question?
Yes, hi, my name is Ray Pettit from the Raritan Valley Roadrunners. We're in Central Jersey. And our scholarship program is about 4 years old, and it was started right around when the pandemic started. And we did it to basically honor the club members who died for various reasons. We were thinking about starting it in the name of a particular person, but we thought in an effort to attract more donations, we named it after the club. So that was one thing that we struggled about, was how to name it or what to name it. But my question has to do more with the size of the scholarship. I didn't see that came up today. we talked to Isabella in the Freehold Running Club, and we talked to other running clubs, and being that we're kind of not far from New York, but we feel we're competing against some students that are receiving fairly substantial scholarships, we didn't think we could get away with $500 like Andrew has in Utica. So we sized it at 1,000, and some people might want to go even higher. So my question is, do you think $1,000 is enough to get a kid excited about applying for a scholarship? We have gotten away with 500. So that's my basic question: the size of the scholarship for the students.
Well, we do definitely the $2,000 one for a year, $1,000 each semester. But then if we do more, it might be $1,000 and it might be $500. And I guess it just depends on the student. I mean, those kids who might be, running for college and they've got the full ride scholarship, maybe it doesn't make such an impact to them. But I mean, $500 will buy books, it does make a difference. And if you're maybe depending on how much you require the student to do, I think it just depends on the student, but it does take some thinking. It's like, oh, is more $500 or $1,000 scholarships better than like one bigger one? I don't, I think it depends on your area and income level and what kind of school. I mean, just the area and the income level that you're in, the type of students you're going to draw. I don't know. That's kind of definitely a tough discussion to have and to figure out.
We're lucky that we have the reference point of the foundation to kind of compare with. Since the very beginning, we've given either $1,000 or $1,500. That does seem to vary based on how much money we have coming out of our race each year. So we're generally giving $1,500 scholarships. And when I went to the award ceremony, because I have twins who graduated this year, and listened to all the other scholarships that were given out, many of them are still $1,000 scholarships. Mm-hmm. So that seems to be in par for our area, at least. We're not seeing a bunch of kids get $5,000 scholarships, and then the Runners Club is the only one giving out $1,000. Right. So I think the kids are still very appreciative, even though $1,000 definitely doesn't go as far as it did when I was in college. So.
You might want to check at your local high schools. Like, again, our district has that list of local scholarships, and it gives basic information about each scholarship, including how much it is. And so maybe it would be, if you can find a list like that, it would be helpful to see what all the other scholarships, the local scholarships that kids are looking at to apply to.
If you have a connection to the school, your school counselor should have a list of all of those scholarships already. That's kind of part of their role, is to distribute scholarships out there. Mm-hmm. So again, like what Shelley's saying, like look at what your community has and what you are able to offer, then you can divide it up however seems appropriate. And then in terms of like naming it after people, we've done that as well as a club, but sometimes we kind of like rotate it through, or we'll make it like a general name and say it's in honor of, not just for like a scholarship, but like a general type of award as well. So maybe just something like that to consider. There's another local running club who honors a veteran every single year at their run, and then they do like their bio. So maybe something like that might help if that's what your mission is and what your goal is for the scholarship.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Andy, do you want to come back on?
Sure.
All
Hello.
right. Thanks. I'll let you wrap it up with some housekeeping.
Yeah,
if there is any.
So as mentioned, thanks for everybody that's dropped their email in the chat. We'll get this has all been recorded. We'll get this posted on YouTube probably tomorrow, so we can share that out to you. I think like I said, it sounds like everybody's got great points, and this is a very good conversation to keep going, and I think it can all be valuable resources to each other. Huge thank you to our panelists. As we noted to them that this was a topic of great interest, and so to have that information is really vital. I would just say, like, closing thoughts, you talk about impact, you know, we do this runner friendly community program, and I think the basis of it is to show how much the community goes into making a successful running club. And I think scholarships, just existing as something that clubs do, shows that you provide value to the community too, and that you appreciate sort of what they do for you to exist as a club and host events. And so I think that's kind of my takeaway from listening to this. So Nikki, thank you for organizing this. Thank you everyone for joining. We'll have, like I said, the recording out and some additional contact information for everybody soon. And take care.
All right. Thank you everyone for coming. Andrew, Sarah, Shelley, thank you so much for talking about your programs. They're all awesome, and I appreciate all the information you shared with us.